information. Okay, cool.
So, hi, welcome, happy Friday, welcome to everybody, and thank you for coming to Facebook Live Chats with Betsy. And I am really excited today because we're talking about a really, really important topic, and that is divorce during a pandemic. And we are really lucky to have Jennifer Beeler with us from Beeler. They're a local law firm, and if you have questions, please put them in the comment box or contact me. I can get you in touch with them very easily. But we're going to go through how the heck do you handle a divorce during this time? And as people have been talking about, you're living with somebody in really close quarters, and I bet a lot of unrest is occurring. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jennifer. Thank you so much for being with me. Love having you.
Thank you, Betsy. It's good to be with you.
So the first question I have is, how are people feeling? Are you seeing that people are, they were kidding around saying there's either going to be a lot of babies or a lot of divorces, probably both.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're seeing it yet or if it's too early.
When everything closed in March, that included the courthouses. So it took a while for everybody to kind of work their way through how we are going to go through court proceedings with not having an open courthouse where people can be there. But once the courts got their established procedure as to how they're going to conduct court by remote, which is primarily Zoom, I think people have become much more comfortable. So we have had people, yes, go through a divorce, finalize a divorce, start a divorce, everything along the way, because people are now becoming more acclimated with what we have as our, we keep calling the new normal.
The new normal, yeah. I think that maybe froze people in their path for a little while, but now they're back to, okay, I can't stand this anymore. And I think people are, I can't stand this anymore with a lot of things, from their hair to their spouse.
If Kelly Clark tried to quarantine with her husband for this amount of time and winds up filing for divorce at the end of a couple of months, yes, people have now realized the door is open. So
doors are opening. So this is a perfect time to talk about this. So, which leads us into our first question. Yes, you can go through a divorce at this time. All the aspects. No live court at this time, all through?
No live court. Everything is done by remote. Everything is done by Zoom. So it's for everybody's protection. But we have found ways to be able to do this to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. But everything follows the same procedures pretty much as before.
Okay. All right. That's good. And how about moving out? How are you seeing people handle their living arrangements, especially since, real estate here? What are you seeing people do?
Okay, that's a good question, because you and I actually talked about this when COVID started to put these restrictions in place, as to how do people start to look for someplace else to go. And all of those processes are there with real estate agents, as to I can look for things online. I contact my real estate agent. I'm able to go through the house carefully when no one else is there. I wear masks, gloves, protective shoe coverings, everything that's there. Once people realized that the real estate agents had this all figured out as to how they can comfortably look for someplace else to live, I think that really lessened a lot of people's concerns about filing for divorce, because that was the last thing in the world they wanted to do, is go through the divorce process and still have to be in the house with the person that they are going through the process with.
While we're discussing this, I'm just going to go, I have some experience with divorce, more than we want to acknowledge, really. But anyway, when somebody leaves, and this may be a bigger question than just a yes or no, but let's say you're living with somebody and you say, okay, I cannot get along with these people. I feel like my life is in danger. It's making me crazy. I'm going to my brother's house. Okay, and you leave. Do you risk property? What's the rule of thumb on that?
All right, kind of a two-part question. One is if there are children involved. The other one is if there are no children involved.
Oh, okay.
If no children are involved, and you say, I cannot do this anymore, I'm going to go stay with my brother, I'm going to go find an apartment on my own, go move out, you don't risk anything that is marital property, especially the house that you're leaving behind.
Okay.
I'll segue a little bit, I mean, because there's mortgages and payments and other things that need to be involved, but you don't risk anything from a title standpoint.
Right.
With children involved, I would not advise leaving the house until you have a parenting plan in place. One of the things that we found during COVID is the judges immediately came down with an order that if there's a parenting plan in place, everybody should follow it. The concern is that if you move out and then you start to have these concerns as to kids going back and forth between two different households, exposure, how many other people are involved, it really becomes more complicated. So I would not say you should move out until you know what you're doing for parenting.
Okay, so let's talk about this. First step, you're thinking of getting a divorce, because we have this in mortgage. First step when you're thinking about mortgage, stop spending money. Check your credit. So first step, you're thinking about getting divorced. I'm assuming contact a divorce attorney. But then what are some of the things you tell people, like I didn't know, don't move out if you have kids? I mean, are there some rules of thumb? These are things to think about phase one.
Yes, and that's where really talking to a divorce attorney is a good idea. You can get a lot of information from people who have gone through divorces, but that information is going to be very specific to what happened to your friend that you're talking to during his or her divorce.
Right.
Talking about, if I move out, am I responsible for paying the mortgage? If I move out and I rent a place and I don't have enough money to contribute to paying the mortgage, what happens, especially when your name is still on it? If I move out and property taxes are due, or if I move out and I want to get the house sold, what do I need to do? That's why you need to talk to an attorney who's skilled in divorce to be able to get the right kind of information.
Right. That is so true. Especially, I would think, when there's minor children involved.
Oh,
it's a totally different ball game. I just didn't even think of, you can't just say, well, I'm moving over here and I'll see you, blah, blah. I'll see you whenever.
Right.
That probably, I bet the judges don't even like that so much. They'd rather see you be responsible and have a plan in before the arguing starts.
That's the best thing to do. And that's actually one of the things that we've been doing a lot during this time is we're trying to encourage people that if they can anyway mediate their divorce, it's the best way to try to save wear and tear on everybody to try to make these kinds of decisions, because going into court on an emergency basis, it happens, it has to happen. But trying to do mediation or collaborative law is a much better way to do it. But if they can't, then that's why we go back to court.
Okay, so I'm old, and I know that there's collaborative and mediated divorces. Can you tell me what that is? I mean, really, when I got divorced,
you filed.
It was different. Yeah. So tell me, and I'm assuming this is, it could be, even if there aren't children, if there's a lot of money involved, you don't want to have a big fight.
Yeah. Okay. Mediation is working with a mediator. It's confidential. It can be done either before you even file the divorce, or it could be done to kind of step back when the divorce is in place to see if you can do this cooperatively without having the attorneys constantly in court and doing the true litigation of, taking depositions, serving discovery, all those kinds of things. So a mediator is in a confidential setting and trying to bring people to resolution. It's terrific for parenting matters. It's terrific for financial matters. And you can bring in the attorneys or other people to try to help you through the mediation process. Collaborative divorce involves the attorneys in the room, but they also bring in professionals. There can be a coach for helping with communication, because that probably is what led those folks to divorce in the first place. There is a neutral financial person who's brought in where, you have to decide what happens with a business, what happens with the house, what happens with all of the investments that you have. There can even be a neutral coach for parenting matters. If you have something that's more involved with a child with special needs, or a child with learning disabilities, a child who has is terrific and is doing travel hockey, but the parents have a problem with trying to coordinate that. You bring a parenting coach to talk about those things.
So are these people that you have connections with, and then you have a list of I deal with these mediators and these financial people and these. So do you have certain people that your go-tos, your trusted advisors?
Yes. You have training in mediation and be certified to be able to do that, and to become a collaborative attorney, as well as become a collaborative neutral for financial matters, for children's matters. Those are people who have all taken the collaborative training and keep up fellowship training in order to be able to be recognized.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's great. That is good to know, and that's really important. So the first stop, like in real estate, is to speak to somebody who's knowledgeable, because this day and age, you really need to go to the experts. And I believe that anyway. You don't want your dentist delivering your baby. Or I don't. And I don't want them do, no offense, but I don't want them doing Botox either. They can do Botox. They take a little class, but really stick to my teeth. I trust you, but, So, okay, what does primary residential custody mean?
Okay. A couple of years ago, this was put into place as part of our statutes that we have to look at when we're talking about parenting time. When parents are together, kids are going to school because you only have one house, and so you don't have to worry about this. But when people are going to be splitting into two separate households, one parent is going to be designated as the primary residential parent for school enrollment purposes. Okay. So if someone is keeping the house when the divorce goes through, and their agreement is that the kids will continue to go to school from that residence, that person really does have the majority of the parenting time, or even if it's 50-50, they're able to say, for school enrollment purposes, legally, this is where the kids are going to school. The problem becomes when someone moves out and they move into a different school district, and they say, oh, well, my school district in Glencoe is as good as the school district in Highland Park. I should be named the primary residential parent for school enrollment purposes. So that's where you have to consider, where should these kids go to school, because the school needs to know who's designated because of where they're living.
Right. You can't flip back and forth. I don't like that teacher. Now this year we're going to be at that. I would think that some of that might be going on, or people would like it to go on. And
people, when they do make those moves, they consider where they're moving because of the school district. So that's one of the things they have to consider, but you also have to consider where these kids are going to be landing and where they're going to be going to school, what's best for those kids.
What's best for them, which I hope people try to focus on what's best for the kids in these. I'm sure they don't all do that, but it's my prayer that they do. Yeah. Is there anything I can do to force my spouse to leave? What about that?
Oh, if you want to keep the house?
Even if you don't want to keep can you just say, get the hell out? They can just say no.
You can say that, but hopefully that spouse has an attorney who's telling him, don't go until you have their parenting plan into place. It's a very difficult battle to force someone to leave. That's why attorneys really should talk to each other to say what is going to be best for the parties, and what's going to be best if there are kids involved. If it's just two adults who are battling it out, you really should try to have a good plan in place as to where someone is going to go next.
Yeah. I always tell people that too, as far as because people move when there's a life change. They need a bigger house, they need a smaller house, they're getting divorced, somebody dies. And it is good to at least look at your future, because it's less scary then. And as far as divorce and real estate, I would think if you have an idea what you need to spend, then you're going to make better choices in your divorce when you're negotiating money, because you can't say, well, I'll just live on $500 a month. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Or I need $40,000 a month to rent a place, so try and be really.
I know. And that's why when people come for an initial consultation, when they're just even the stage of, this isn't going well, I'm thinking about a divorce, that's one of the things we talk about, as to start exploring, start talking to your realtor now, because if you do need to make that move, you want to make sure that you're prepared and you know where you're going to land next.
Right, right. And I think it calms you so that you can be more present and better during your negotiations. You don't want to have something else in your head when you're worried about getting a divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, here's something I have from my own experience. So, do you counsel your people? I think what happens, you say you're getting a divorce, and then everybody and their brother weighs in. And I think that they start making it worse. They start telling you, you need to do this, you should get this, you should, and you could have started out with somebody that's neutral, and by the time all these do-gooders, have you seen that? I mean, in your practice?
Very, very much so. And that's why we tell people right from the beginning, a therapist is the best person to talk these things out with, because a therapist is really going to give you the right kind of feedback that you need in order to put your head in the right place during this.
Right.
Judges time and again will tell people, do not post on Facebook. You do not want to live your divorce. You do not want to have your children's lives lived out on Facebook.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising, but I didn't think of it because that wasn't in my, I didn't get divorced during Facebook era. Yeah. Are there any other things that you would say have changed in the last 5 years, or new things? Because some people are counseling you on a divorce that they had 15 years ago. And 15 years ago in today's time is a long time, technology wise and
everything else. I would say two things in particular. One is the therapy aspect. I mean, if you were divorced more than 10 years ago, therapy was said in quiet terms. If you were on any medication to help equalize, that's a very quiet thing as well. The courts right now are very good proponents of saying, if someone needs mental health treatment, or if someone needs just to talk to somebody in therapy, do it. It's a good thing. It helps people through. It helps put you in a better state of mind. So it's not a quiet thing. It's something that's actively encouraged. The other thing is parenting time, because moms, dads together are more hands-on, I think, than they ever have been. So I think it's really important to talk to a divorce attorney when you talk about putting a parenting schedule together. You really have to consider a lot of things: child support, number of overnights, those kinds of things, and what's going to be best for your kids when you're putting that together. It's not, 10 to 15 years ago, it would be, dad has Friday and Saturday overnight, return for Sunday dinner, and maybe a Tuesday night dinner. It's not like that anymore.
Okay, that's really interesting, and really, so now it's much more specific, much more involved, much more care and time goes into, which I think is really, really good. There's enough problems with, what if the girlfriend is over? What if he said something I don't like? What if they allow him to watch TV that I don't like, or play video? I mean, I'm sure you get everything. I can't imagine how you handle those things. Do people complain about those things? Like, I want to go to court because I don't like that he's letting my child watch a video game, or how to?
Very much so.
Okay.
But you really have to put things in the huge spectrum as to what's going to use your time most effectively.
Right.
Is it the fact that they watched a PG-13 movie, or they're limiting their screen time, or you're feeding them SpaghettiOs instead of broccoli? Or is it really that they're
watching porn, or something horrible? SpaghettiOs, broccoli, and something horrible.
Or are we not talking to each other, and our 15-year-old has told both of us that they're going to the other parent's house, and we find out the 15-year-old has able to go to somebody else's house and party.
Right, playing both sides against the middle, as we used to call it. Right. Very interesting. That's you just gotta hope. I mean, we see these things all the time, and we always hope that people are going to have their kids' interests at heart. And maybe they think they do, even though they're arguing a lot. This is a good question. What if one of the two refuses to sell the house? Like, I'm not selling the house, but they can't afford the house. What happens there?
Okay. Um, in the beginning of a case, you fill out something called a financial affidavit. It is not fun, not pleasant to go through, but it's absolutely critical because it shows you what you can afford and what you have coming in. And it's used then to be able to say to a judge, we can't afford to keep this house when we are living in two separate households, or
Right.
one person can't afford on their own to take over mortgage payments, upkeep, everything else without substantial contribution from the other person, and there may not be enough in the whole pie
Hi.
of income to be able to do it. So yes, there is a way to force the house to be sold, but it really you have to show financially that it has to be sold because it's just too burdensome for both parties to keep.
That's important. Just, is there anything else that I hadn't thought of that you think is that you'd like to share that I missed that I?
Yeah. One of the things is, can parties hold on to a house after a divorce is over? Or what kind of procedures can be put into place? Say there are children involved and somebody is got an eighth grader or a junior in high school or something.
I know too.
Yeah, okay. You can do that. You have to put the right provisions in place into their settlement agreement to say, okay, we both have agreed as parents that we want to jointly own the house for the next year or so, but it really has to be a thoughtful process as to how is the mortgage going to be paid, how a repair is going to be done,
Right.
procedure that's going to be in place for selecting a realtor once we have put this kid through that last year of school and it is time to sell the house. How are we going to deal with the proceeds? How are we going to deal with, what if the roof falls in and there has to be a major repair during that period of time?
Right.
So it can be done, so long as it's worked out by agreement, but you really have to be considerate of all of the possible things. I had somebody say the other day, my gosh, you plan for Armageddon, and it's kind of
yes. But that's why they need you, because you have all the systems in place to make sure that they don't miss anything. If I'm just thinking of these things as a layperson, I don't have years of experience compiling. This is the list that we need to go over, which you have, that we need to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And even then, like COVID, something could happen that we didn't think would happen.
Well, yeah, and you've seen that too. What if somebody doesn't keep the house in good condition for showings?
Right.
What if they decide they don't want to hold open houses? How are we going to hold them accountable because they said we have to sell the house? So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. One last question. So if somebody wanted to contact you, do you give them a 15-minute or something free consultation, or just to get them so they can know you a little bit? How does that work?
We do a free half-hour consultation. We've been doing a lot of consultations by phone and by Zoom at this point. But they're welcome to do that because we'd like to be able to have them talk about what's going on in their lives and get some preliminary information as to what needs to happen next.
Okay, that's great. That's really good, because that way they can, and even though it's over Zoom, they can get to know you a little bit. And, well, it is important to have the right connection with your attorney.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know everything about their lives. And so,
right.
Good to
and so you're working with the whole family, all the people, to come to the best resolution possible under the circumstances.
Yes.
Which is great. I thank you so much for giving us all of this information.
Thank you.
And this is so fun. And, we'll do this again. And if anybody has any questions, please just text me. Well, you just put them in the comment box. I will get notified. I can get you in touch with Jennifer, and it's Cecil Beeler Law. And you're located in, I think, Wilmette?
In Northfield.
It's Northfield. Okay.
And also in Gurnee.
Okay. Oh, great. Gurnee and Northfield, that is great. And now we're doing everything from Zoom anyway. So if you live in the city, that works too.
Mhm.
So I hope everybody enjoys their day. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being with us. And I wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a great day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Okay.